A heavily discussed and equally divisive subject within fandom spaces is shipping, the act of taking two or more characters and imagining them in a relationship. This often takes form in fan art, fanfiction, headcanons, and a lot of aggressive debates and drama online. For me personally, I'm what you would call a filthy multi-shipper. I don't necessarily ship characters together with the hopes of them becoming canon, but simply for the fun of imagining characters in different scenarios, be it wholesome or harmful. Now, I'm a grown woman, and as such, I have decades of experience within fandoms, and the hell that is shipping wars. From anti-groups on DeviantArt to the psychological horror that is Twitter. And out of all fandoms I've been in, no other has the same amount of shipping wars as Sonic the Hedgehog. It's such a huge talking point within the culture of Sonic fan spaces that shipping names have been named within canon numerous times, and even people outside the fandoms can name Sonic-related shipping names off the top of their heads. Bro, I can't even name ship names within fandoms I'm in. This is absurd. Now, I have definitely been part of the problem. I have had my heated debates with fellow fans, and back in the day, I have definitely been part of my fair share of hate groups on DeviantArt. However, I think with age, and with my change of how I see shipping as a whole, I've grown to be more accepting of different ships. And I think the Sonic franchise has a lot to offer in that regard, because despite the series having strict rules when it comes to official pairings, they sure do like to throw us a bone on occasion. And so, today I wanted to celebrate this iconic part of my favorite little fandom by making a top 15 Sonic ships list. Yes, 15, because after putting all this together, I quickly realized that 10 wasn't enough. I've also been making these into keychains, so I want my potential buyers to have more options. And to get this out of the way, I will just mention that, firstly, since I'm a multi-shipper, the same characters can and will appear multiple times because I'm not picky like that, and like I said previously, I think the fun of shipping is imagining characters in different scenarios. Secondly, this list will include both straight and gay ships. I don't ship characters with the idea of them becoming canon. I ship them because they spark interest and whimsy, and because it's fun. Also, there are so many queer pairings that are more likely to be canon than half of the straight ships you guys like. Anyways, like we used to say back in the day, don't like, don't watch. And thirdly, this is my list. These are my personal preferences, and if you don't see your favorite ship on the list, firstly, let me know what they are. But also, this doesn't mean I dislike the pair, because this was honestly difficult to put together. There are so many amazing ships, and sticking to 15 was rough. I am more likely to be a fellow enjoyer than a hater. Now that that's out of the way, let's get drawing. Number 15. Met Amy, aka Amy and Metal Sonic. Ah yes, Sonic's two biggest fans. You all know Amy. She's Sonic's fangirl turned powerful companion who still retains a sweet little crush. Meanwhile, Metal Sonic is a robot designed to replicate and replace Sonic, with programming conditioning him into believing that he is indeed the real deal. Amy and Metal Sonic both got introduced in Sonic CD, but while Amy was the damsel that needed saving, Metal Sonic was the antagonist to steal her away. As such, these two seem like an unlikely and frankly dysfunctional pairing. But what I believe made so many people fall in love with this ship was firstly, Amy's ability to convert even the baddest of people into doing good, person or robot alike. As such, Met Amy definitely appeals to the fantasy of I can fix him. This also adds a potential fun dynamic where Metal Sonic steals Sonic's girl, and therefore gets to beat him at something. It's a ship with a lot of potential drama, perfect for fanfiction. There's also a very popular Sonic Mania adventure short, where Amy puts aside the past and helps Metal Sonic get back home to Eggman. It's very cute and it helps spark a lot of interest in the ship. As for me, this is one of those ships where I adore the things fans can do with it. So many possibilities and interesting ways to go about their dynamic, and how they get together, along with how it will work in the long run. I wouldn't want it to be canon, but the fans are beyond creative, and you'll see later, I just think Amy ships that include Sonic's rivals are very intriguing. Number 14. Gerald Doom, Black Doom, and Gerald Robotnik. To many fans, I think this one started out as a joke, an unintentional queer relationship within the canon of the Sonic universe. To those confused, Black Doom and Gerald Robotnik lived together, alone, for decades on a spaceship, where they not only tried to find a cure for NITS, aka neuroimmunodeficiency syndrome, which many fans read as an allegory for the very real acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Do I have to explain the symbolism of two men who live alone who try to find a cure for this particular illness? No? Okay. Either way, how they go about this is they try to create life from their own DNA. Not only did they create the Bio-Lizard and Shadow the Hedgehog from their own DNA, somehow, but they refer to both of them as their children and sons. So we have two men from completely different worlds who try with all their might to start a family. Needless to say, I don't think this queer reading was the intention of the authors. But this way of interpreting the dynamic doesn't exactly stray from canon either, making this pair a slow but steadily rising ship among fans. I think the only thing holding them back is the fact that Gerald is an old fart and Black Doom, well no. I don't see why he is more popular considering how freaky some women are on Archive of Our Own. Either way, if both of them were more conventionally attractive, this ship would probably be more popular. But I like them. I think this interpretation of their dynamic is very fascinating, and unlike many others on the list, this is close to canon as you're gonna get. Number 13. Vectilla, aka Vector and Vanilla. This is a simple but classic dynamic. In the Sonic X anime, the Chaotix gets introduced to the cast, and in the mingling of the new and old characters, some genius writer decided it was a great idea to make the leader of the team, Vector the Crocodile, fall head over heels for Cream's mother, Vanilla the Rabbit. Now, these two are in very different stages of their lives. Despite being a single mother, Vanilla seems fairly well off and stable, with a huge house and enough energy to take care of her daughter on her own. She's pretty independent, all things considered. Meanwhile, Vector is a bit more, well, chaotic. He barely scrapes by, can barely afford rent, and everything is a bit of a mess. But he really wants to impress Vanilla, despite his shortcomings, and most of their dynamics centers around this will they, won't they scenario. Because you can kinda understand why Vanilla is hesitant to have anything serious with Vector. Would he add anything of value to her lifestyle, or would it just be more trouble in the end? Despite the shortcomings, Vanilla does seem to some extent reciprocate feelings towards him, and it seems as though if circumstances were different, she would be interested in something more serious with him. I think the appeal stems from the viewer's desire for Vector to, well, get the girl. You want him to prove himself and win her over because it would not only fulfill our wishes as shippers, but it would likely be a byproduct of him finding success in his field of work. I like how both characters' motivations are tied together with their romantic dynamic. It means that if this pairing was canon, it would encourage more development for the both of them and make for even more interesting stories. And that is just something I value in a pairing, as you'll see later, once I get to the other ships. But in the end, Vector and Vanilla are an interesting pair, and it's always a blessing to see them together. Number 12. Topaz, aka Rouge and Topaz. This is yet another ship that has gotten more popular over time. Topaz works as an agent for the US government. She's strict, disciplined, and a hard worker. And she is forced to work alongside the cunning, scheming, and unpredictable Rouge the Bat. Despite their first interactions beginning with flirtatious remarks from Rouge, one would think that these two wouldn't get along, with their opposite values and different ways of approaching conflicts. But these two are quick to look past their differences and work together as partners, going on numerous missions together and even more dates in the background. Rouge and Topaz easily fall into the classic opposites attract trope, and they're a lot of fun to watch. But where other similar ships in Sonic fail due to leaning too much to the characters bickering, you never doubt that these two care for each other. And, oh yeah, I'm just gonna say this because I know this is very controversial within the Sonic fandom, and even outsiders like to dominate this conversation. I think the shipping between humans and Mobians is fine. And I think people who argue otherwise have no basic understanding of the Sonic universe. Mobians have human consciousness. They live within human society, work with humans, and humans have never shown to treat Mobians as lesser beings. Mobians are more like an alien species, especially considering real animals do exist in the lore, and Mobians look nothing like them. It isn't weird for all of you to goon to Rouge the Bat every time you go to Rule 34. And it isn't weird for Rouge and Topaz to go on a few dates. These two are so fun together, and I wish it was explored more, since Topaz and Tanaka got together at the last minute for no reason at all. Like, that shit was so dumb, I don't get it. Like, we had this that was way better, and then they just shoehorned straightness into it. Like, it was so fucking dumb. Number 11. Starmake, aka Starline and Mimic. Dr. Starline and Mimic are both IDW comic exclusives, who have been introduced as major antagonists in the story. Dr. Starline starts out as Eggman's fanboy, but as he gets to know his idol and comes to realize how incompetent Eggman can be, he becomes his own original threat. Meanwhile, Mimic is a former ally to the character Whisper, who I'll talk about later. But he betrayed her and her teammates for selfish reasons and is also now a manipulative and sadistic villain. These two do on occasion work together, mostly due to the enemies of my enemies is my friend mentality. Quite frankly, they kinda dislike each other and only use each other for their own benefits. And you know what's not to love about a yaoi ship where they hate each other in canon? This is honestly a phenomenon I find so fascinating in fanon. How we can take two characters who have such disdain and disinterest in each other in canon, and yet we still manage to find their potential captivating. I like this ship simply because I love these two characters, and just seeing them interact is enough to make me interested. Both Starline and Mimic are easily among my top favorite characters. And so, it's fun to see how fans depict their relationships in fan works, be it wholesome or dysfunctional. As much as I love a healthy and wholesome relationship, I can also find intrigue in a problematic couple, because it can tell an equally interesting story if done well. Let them take advantage of each other, screw each other over, or maybe even make them do horrible things together. The sky is the limit. And I think that's what's so fun with pairings where you don't have much to go off of. You can really take it any direction you want. Also, I just think both characters look good. There, I said it. Not ashamed to admit that. Number 10. Tailsmo. Tails and Cosmo. This was definitely a popular ship back when Sonic X was running. During the last season of the show, we were introduced to a new alien species where we meet Cosmo, whose people need the help of Sonic and friends. Throughout the story, Tails starts to really connect with Cosmo, and they have a sweet little romance. I think I mostly include these two because of the cute factor and what it did for the story. I think this dynamic added a lot of interesting story beats to an otherwise mediocre anime. And out of all the romances Tails has had throughout the decades, this is the only one to actually get any amount of depth. We get to see when they start crushing on each other, when their friends try to set them up, and it's handled fairly well. It's really limited what you can do when it's two obvious kid characters who fall in love, and I think it works fairly well for what they try to do. If you don't want spoilers for Sonic X, a 23-year-old show, skip to the next ship, okay? Okay, are they gone? Are they gone? Okay, let's go. Cosmo fucking dies in the end. She sacrifices herself to save her planet, and in order to complete her mission, Tails is the one forced to shoot her. Yes, this actually happens. Watch the Japanese version, where they weren't fucking cowards. Tails has a meltdown in this scene, and of all people, Eggman is the one to talk some sense into him and give him closure. Tails is way too young to go through this kind of loss, which hurts all the more. It's honestly powerful stuff, and I wish Sonic X wasn't so boring so I could actually watch the entire series and enjoy this scene to its full potential. But yeah, Tails and Cosmo, they're a classic pair. I like them. Number 9. Search Amy, aka Amy and Search. Amy is out here fixing everyone, okay? Similar to Met Amy, Search is one of Sonic's many rivals that are commonly shipped with Amy due to the character's goal of replacing or being him. Search was genetically enhanced and brainwashed by the aforementioned Dr. Starline with the only purpose of destroying Sonic. However, throughout her journey, she tries to find her own path, unrelated to Starline's input. This ship got popular because at some point in the IDW comics, Surge takes interest in the restoration, and the forgiving, kind Amy is the first person to not only welcome her, but also the first to acknowledge her free will. The fact that Surge is the one who gets to decide where she wants to be and who she wants to be. Amy shows her genuine kindness that she hasn't experienced before. After Surge was introduced, she quickly became one of the most popular characters in the comics, being beloved by even fans who haven't read the source material. The fans who like her for her concept alone will probably like the idea of Surge stealing Sonic's girl from him if he doesn't get his act together soon. But I think readers of the comic got really interested by the possibilities for stories these two could have. What would happen if Surge and Amy became closer, and where would it take the both of them? I think what makes this ship slightly more fascinating to me, as opposed to Met Amy, is that this ship feels possible. Even if they don't become canon, we just want to see where this platonic companionship would take them, because they have just such an intriguing connection. But for now, all us fans just gotta stick to fan work to get our fix. I really like these two, and they're my favorite Amy ship. Number 8. Sonjet, aka Sonic and Jet. 3 green little guys in a row, huh? Jet the Hawk is one of Sonic's many rivals, being equally cocky and full of himself, even challenging Sonic in speed. Well, on his extreme gear, that is. Hell, even Sonic and Jet's team are meant to be parallels to each other, like they were soulmates or something. Weird, hateful soulmates. I really like when Sonic is shipped with someone who can challenge him at his own game, which is, a pretty popular direction to take him, considering just how many other similar Sonic ships there are. Jet stands out to me though, simply because he is probably the most obnoxious out of the bunch, with his huge ego, and yeah, I just really like Jet, he cracks me up. And I think that's the main appeal for me personally. I just really like Jet, and seeing him with somebody who can bring out all the qualities I adore about his character is an instant win for me. I also can't help but notice that despite Jet being so self-obsessed and proud, it's like he clings to any validation from Sonic he can get. It's subtle, but when you're a shipper, you take any brain you can get in order to prove your case, okay? Sonjet fans also just a humorous bunch, with fanworks being not only amazing to look at, but insanely funny. Hell, even non-ship related fanworks between the two are hilarious, and I think that's what's so refreshing about the two, because yeah, we have seen millions of enemies to lover story, but this one in particular has a little bit of tang thrown in there. The tang being humor, of course. I feel like the higher I get on the list, the more vague I get. Whatever, shipping is supposed to be fun, not necessarily deep. Sonjet makes me laugh. Done. Number 7. Sylvace, Silver and Blaze. Is this one still popular? Oh well, back in my day, this was one of the most popular pairings in the fandom, sitting just slightly below Sunami and other equally popular ships. This is obviously due to the games coming out around that time. 2 Sonic Rush games, Sonic Rivals, and the infamous Sonic 06. These two were the hot new things, and they're close in one of the mainline games. It would be weird if they didn't become a popular ship. But it's not just great timing that caused this ship to sail. Their dynamic in Sonic 06 is definitely what sold this to so many fans. We have Silver, a determined, powerful yet misguided hero who's doing his best to do what's right, but his naivete gets in the way of finding the answers. And then there's Blaze, a silent, capable, and kind heroine who functions as Silver's mentor throughout the story, and is there to put some sense into him when everything gets too overwhelming. Silver and Blaze balance each other out so well, being so different, yet evening out each other's weaknesses. They are in a horrible, disastrous future, and all they have are each other. And I think 06 adds a lot of nuance to their chemistry. A lot goes unspoken, they don't need to over-explain, they just get it. Blaze knows that Silver will find the answers on his own, and simply gives him acknowledgement when he does. I think relationships built on trust and genuine compassion are surprisingly rare in the mainline games, and that's definitely what sold this ship back in the day. Too bad a lot of this isn't canon in the current lore, because 06 is the only canon where Blaze is allegedly from the future, and not her own alternative universe. I think that's what slowly killed the ship, simply because their entire dynamic and relationship, well, isn't there anymore. But many of us fans still remember what we felt back in the day, and therefore we still love this ship. Number 6. Sonato, aka Sonic and Shadow. Oh, come on, you knew this one was coming. Sonato is a classic enemies to lovers pair in the fandom and has been both beloved and despised for decades now. I still remember the first time I was introduced to the ship, probably through a music video or tribute as they were called. And it definitely had either a Simon Curtis song playing or Show Me Love by Tattoo. If you know, you know. So despite potential childhood traumas that alter my brain chemistry, what else do I like about this pair? I think honestly the size of its fandom plays a huge part, because I honestly think some of the most talented artists and creators within the Sonic fandom are Sonato shippers. There's just something so raw about how fans draw these two together, be it these epic, hauntingly beautiful masterpieces, the funniest TikTok animation you have ever seen, or that one rule on the internet. I'm also just a sucker for queer enemies to lovers stories. It's fun to imagine how these two, despite their current rivalry, would grow a romantic attraction towards each other. There's also something to say about how this would affect the both of them, because I think another aspect as to why these two are so beloved is because there's really nobody else like them in the universe. Yeah, the both of them had companionships, but nobody can really compare to the power and responsibility they both possess. I think some fans like to focus on the loneliness that both of them must feel, and how they come together as they're the only ones who can understand what they're going through. But honestly, I think a lot of people just find the two of them appealing, which is equally valid. Sonato is such a classic ship and it's hard not to love them. Number 5. Nox Ulie, aka Knuckles and Julie Sue. Uh-oh, controversial ship alert! Now, some of you might be confused right now. Who the hell is Julie Sue the Echidna, and why out of all the options would you ship Knuckles with the pink original character Do Not Steal? Well, already there, I think that is a great misunderstanding of Julie Sue as a character, because she is honestly full of potential for excellent storytelling. You all know Knuckles, a proud Echidna soldier and the last of his tribe, destined to protect the Master Emerald. You know this, but what Julie Sue does is raise the question, what if Knuckles wasn't the last of his kind? Julie Sue is from a faction called the Dark Legion, an evil group of surviving echidnas who rely on technology to do their bidding. When Knuckles first meets Julie Sue, she's naturally an antagonist, and it raises a lot of questions for Knuckles about his origin and the story of his people. I genuinely adore this direction for Knuckles because it expands on his lore and adds a much needed story beat to flesh out his character. I would argue that this concept is so good that Sega even took similar plot elements and put it in a game, which caused a whole lawsuit to happen, and now Knuckles' character has been stagnant for over a decade. No wait, that happened. And it was called Sonic Chronicles. It also helps that Julie Sue is very likable, interesting, and has great chemistry with Knuckles. She's honestly quite similar to him, being a proud, no-nonsense soldier with a stubborn attitude. Her upbringing with Dark Legion also caused her to be very emotionally stunted, which makes for an interesting dynamic where Knuckles can see himself in her if he never met Sonic and friends. But it doesn't end there, because this isn't some oh will they won't they thing where they drag it out for all eternity. No, they're a couple, and the focus is on how their relationship develops. We get to see how they get together when they get older and even who their kids become. They're an established relationship and the both of them are happy together. It's really nice. I know that we're never getting Julie Sue back, and that we will never get a story like this with Knuckles again. And it's honestly really sad. I would have loved to see this concept explored more, and I will forever mourn Julie Sue, because she was honestly the best thing to come out of our favorite Mr. Penders. Number 4. Sonelli, aka Sonic and Sally. Gotta love the classics. We have a lot of new fans and a bunch of people who got into Sonic for different reasons. So some of you may not even know who Sally is. Well, Sally is Sonic's first official love interest all the way back in 1993. All the way to, well, when the Archie comics stopped being produced in 2016. She was introduced through a Western cartoon called Sonic the Hedgehog, or SATAM, as the fans like to call it. It follows an apocalyptic setting, where Robotnik won, and now most of the planet is taken over and roboticized. And so, Sonic and friends must find a way to stop Robotnik and, well, save the planet. The leader of this organization and strategist is Sally Acorn, a smart and capable leader who wants to prove herself. Together, her and Sonic work together to better their world. I think what makes Sonic and Sally work is just how different they are from each other, with Sally thinking everything through and strategizing, while Sonic heads straight into action and makes quick decisions. While sure, they can butt heads, but they even out each other in a meaningful way and they make it work, because in their situation, both ways of thinking are essential. Sally is such a great character, and despite on paper being designed to be a love interest, she can stand on her own and be a fully fleshed character with a lot of depth and her own story. And that's so refreshing, because she could have just been a generic damsel who needed saving, but she isn't. And just like with Nox Juliet, we get to see everything in their relationship, from when they fall in love to when they get together. We get to see all sides of their dynamic, to the highest of highs to some real low points. And that's really how I would describe them. Real. They are a complex, multi-layered, real relationship. They complete each other, but they can function on their own. Sally is likely never coming back, but nothing will ever change the fact that this happened. Sonic and Sally happened, and it makes up the first 23 years of the franchise existence. Sonic may get a new love interest in the future, and that's okay. But I highly doubt anything that's in store for us will ever be as complex as what we got with Sonali, just from decades of build-up, development, and time alone. Sonic and Sally will always have a special place in the hearts of many Sonic fans, and I am one of those fans. They deserve all the love they get. Number 3. Stobotnik, aka Robotnik and Stone. Yes, bitch, I did put an Eggman ship above a Sonic one. Suck it! This ship almost didn't make the list, simply because it's still so new, and when I'm not going to the cinema to watch a Sonic movie every 2 years, I rarely think of the films. But I knew right away that heck yeah, these two are among the best ships in the series. Eggman has had many sidekicks and henchmen throughout the years, from humans to silly little robots. And at first, the new sidekick, Agent Stone, looked to be no different, simply a guy to back Eggman up and be his yes man. However, they either unintentionally or very intentionally made this guy the most fruity, most madly in love henchman to ever exist. At first, one could argue that Agent Stone was simply a very devoted, loyal assistant, and that would be enough to spawn a small but loyal fanbase for the ship, but they took it further. Oh boy, did they take it further! Because in the second movie, they really amped up the comedy when it came to their dynamic, which felt like a love letter to all the fans of the ship. Like Agent Stone drawing the both of them in Robotnik's coffee with silly little hearts around them, and of course, Robotnik's general lack of personal space. All to give the fans some much needed breadcrumbs. But come on, they couldn't possibly go further than this. These movies are for families with kids. We can't have gay people in movies for straight people. Except no, because they went further. Sonic 3 gave us the closest to a romantic storyline this cinematic universe is probably allowed to give us. It's barely a joke anymore, with the ending quite literally having their relationship carry the majority of the emotional weight of the movie. Also, shout out to this person for pointing this out. It's just not subtle anymore. It's just the text. The movie is still fairly new, only being a year old, so I won't spoil to those who haven't seen it yet. I think one of my favorite things about this is honestly the fact that the actors are also in full support of the ship, sharing fan art and obviously leaning into it on set. It's just fantastic. One could argue that the relationship is extremely one-sided, with only Agent Stone having any feelings in it. But I don't know. Robotnik in the movie universe is strange and an unpredictable character, who expresses himself in unconventional ways. He does seem to show some affection in return, just in his own unique way. And again, the themes of the third movie's ending made it fairly clear where the both of them stand. Well, as much as Hollywood will allow them. As an old Sonic fan, I never expected that we would get something like this. Not to mention how I never thought I would want something like this. A potential romantic dynamic between Eggman and his assistant? But here I am. And I wouldn't want it any other way. Number 2. Wispangle, aka Whisper and Tangle. With the introduction of the IDW comics back in 2018, came a bunch of new characters that would instantly become favorites to many fans. Surge, Dr. Starline, but no other can quite compare to the popularity of Tangle and Whisper, which have now been referenced in mobile games and mainline games alike. Tangle, the passionate and rambunctious new member of the Freedom Fight, the Restoration, and Whisper, the quiet yet stoic sniper with a tragic past. These two were the hot new thing, and they got all the attention in the stories. The relationship between the two have also been heavily focused on, with Tangle's extroverted, albeit airheaded nature bringing down Whisper's walls and forming a genuine connection with her. Whisper is the type of person to keep her distance due to being severely hurt in the past, but learns to trust Tangle over time. One thing I found interesting about this ship is IDW's subtle way of slowly canonizing it. Like sure, at first they were simply written to be two gal pals and that was it. But then they slowly started to amp up the angst. So much so that it was hard not to read it as romantic. These two seemed a bit too broken by the loss of one another and a bit too excited about finally reuniting again. But the two of them progressively also got written less like friends and more like a couple who have been together for years and trying to make it work. Their conflicts feel less like two friends arguing and more like a lover's quarrel, especially with how sentimental they can get once they finally make up. And this is very intentional because in the podcast featuring one of the writers, the author mentioned that they are legally not allowed to make them canon, but they obviously want to. So on paper, they are simply good friends. And while it's never stated in canon that they are in fact together, the artist did depict them together with the lesbian flag in the background. Needless to say, these two are just adorable, both on their own and together. Tangle and Whisper are both incredible characters and they have wonderful chemistry. I still can't believe characters like them are canon in the comics, simply because they are that good. I'm excited to see what direction these two will go, and I hope one day that they can have more than orange and pink stripes behind them. Now it's time for honorable mentions. Now, my honorable mentions are a bit different here. Instead of listing all the characters who didn't make the list, I decided I would much rather talk about some popular ships that didn't make the list, because I could imagine some of you might want to know my opinions on them. I am not a ship hater, I'm a ship enjoyer, and I can appreciate other people's fun without necessarily taking a part of it myself. Also, for a business point of view, I know these sell well, so if you ship any of these, you're in luck. First one is Sonamy. To me, this is vanilla flavor. Sonamy has been a fan favorite ever since Amy was introduced in Sonic's CD. Amy was the obvious pink girl to Sonic's blue boy. A very corporate design, but it worked, and Amy has been around ever since, and we love that. At first, Amy was simply meant to be the anti-Princess Peach, a girl that needed rescuing, except Sonic wasn't interested and she was more of a fangirl than anything else. Later on, Amy wants to prove her worth and slowly works up to become part of the core team, adding her own value to the friend group. Now her crush on Sonic is more in the background, but it does get hinted at on occasion. This stays consistent in multiple media, with Sonic Boom, IDW, and Prime having similar dynamics between the characters. Sonic Boom being noteworthy for being quite funny. When I was a kid, I used to really like this ship. I think it reminded me of Angel and Stitch or Sasuke and Sakura. I think the concept of having a crush is also very relatable when you're a kid, so you naturally want to see them get together. Now, like I mentioned, this ship just feels very corporate and marketing strategy-ish, and I just don't care for it personally. If they become canon, I wouldn't be mad about it, but I also, wouldn't care much. I would be happy for the many fans who have been waiting for this for decades, and it honestly wouldn't surprise me if that was the direction they would take it in the movies. I'm okay with it. The second is Nox Rouge. Now, just looking at their dynamic in official media, these two should be among my favorites. I love enemies to lovers, I love when characters have complicated relationships, and I love some drama. And I think these two have fun banter, and there have been several situations where these two have given each other some dirty looks. They are obviously attracted to each other, there's no denying it. However, I feel like most Nox Rouge fans don't see the same vision as me, because apparently a lot of them don't even see enemies to lovers. Hell, most Nox Rouge fans don't really seem to recognize these as rivals at all. And I think that's boring, because them having different values and morals is what makes them interesting. I love the dynamic of two characters who, if things were different, probably would be together. However, in the world they live in, one would have to give up on everything they are in order to be with the other. What, do you think I'm making that up? Look at Rouge in Prime. She has no character, no personality, no values, no goals, nothing. She's just a girl that stands next to Knuckles. But that's the only way that could work, because Rouge's character is morally more grey, and her selfish nature wouldn't fit in with the heroism of Sonic and friends. From what I've seen, this is kind of the vibe most Nox Rouge fans are content with. And I just don't like it. I like when Rouge gets to be a baddie, and I don't think that will slide if she's constantly playing along with Team Sonic. She would have to give up on her core values as a person if she wants to be with Knuckles. And I like Rouge as a character, and I don't want her to take that direction. Simply put, I don't like the path Rouge's character would take if anything serious were to happen between her and Knuckles. I personally feel it would be a misguided direction, and it would just dumb her down to Knuckles' girl. If more shipping art and fanfiction was focused on their rivalry, I think I would enjoy them way more. And for the number 1 spot, we have Shadouche, aka Shadow and Rouge. If you followed me for any amount of time, you already knew this one would be my number 1. Shadow and Rouge were introduced in Sonic Adventure 2, and given the theme of this title, they along with Eggman were meant to be the anti-versions of Team Sonic, Shadow being Sonic's rival and Rouge being Knuckles. And since this game, they have consistently been featured together in later titles, and each rendition tends to delve into their relationship and individual character arcs further. You see, both characters are quite morally grey. They're out for themselves and are likely to hurt others along the way if it meant getting what they want. But despite supposedly having these set of values, they have a tendency to be there for each other and even prioritize one another in situations where it would be easier to just quit. Like I mentioned on a few of my other picks, something I value in a romantic couple is how their stories tie into each other. All characters have a goal, something they want, or a direction the story is trying to take them. And where the story takes them should complement their relationship and continue their growth, not bring it to a stop. And that is why I love Shadouche oh so much. Because the core of their character is that they are two broken people who were taught not to trust anyone by an unfair world. So, an optimal direction to take the characters is how can they learn to trust again and let others in, which is exactly the direction they took in the 2000s. Shadow and Rouge continue to work together, at first for their own gain, but it slowly becomes apparent that sometimes they help each other out simply for the sake of it. Shadow has no reason to work for GUN, the government agency that literally killed Maria, and yet he joined them anyways. Why? Well, because Rouge is there. Also, the Rouge in Sonic Adventure 2 would never prioritize the safety of another if it meant risking herself. And yet here she is in 06, pouring her heart out to Shadow, promising to stay by his side no matter what. She is willing to risk her career and safety net if it meant protecting Shadow. The relationship between Shadow and Rouge encourages so much natural development for both characters, but in a way that never takes away from either of them. They have such a genuine and nuanced understanding of each other, and know when to give each other space, but also when to be there. Unfortunately, they were very underutilized for the past 2 decades, because the Sonic series suddenly got very allergic to character development after the disaster that was Sonic 06. and the arc Shadow and Rouge went through was unfortunately put on the shelf. Well, that was until Sonic X Shadow Generations, where we once again see them back in action, and it was honestly the best they've been in years. From them having fun banter, to them once again sharing some intimate feelings with each other in their own unique ways. I could honestly talk about them for hours and all the little subtleties. For example, I found it very interesting in SA2 that out of all the characters, Rouge was the one to receive Shadow's inhibitor ring after he was assumed dead. And while I know this is debunked, I also can't help but being intrigued by the whole theory that Silver might be the child of Shadow and Rouge due to the implications in Sonic and the Black Knight. Okay, I'm moving on, sorry. Anyways, this definitely goes into fanfiction territory because like hell if they're gonna tackle this subject in the Sonic game, but I am very fascinated by Shadow's mortality and how it would affect his relationships in the future. If they were to establish a romantic relationship, how would Shadow deal with the fact that at some point Rouge will die and he's going to keep living? Would he be just as broken as when he lost Maria? Would it be even harder for him to form connections after that? And how would they even make it work while they are together? It ties back into his story of loss and the loneliness that comes with being this all-powerful immortal being. I don't know, I just think there are just so many things to talk about when it comes to these two. Shadouche was probably my very first real ship I connected with that I still love to this day. I think it showcases some genuine and unconditional love that not many other Sonic pairings showcase quite as effectively. I don't say this with many ships, but this is honestly one where I would cheer in the streets if they became canon, and that is a Fred. Oh wow, who would have thought my number one pick would have twice as long a script as the others? Whoopsie daisy. Anyways, that was the list. In hindsight, this was an insane challenge for me to do. 17 unique drawings in under a week? What was I thinking? You know, whenever other creators make these videos where they draw a bunch of characters, I always wondered why they only made 4 or 5 per video. Now I know why, because this was nearly impossible. But it was a lot of fun, and it awoke my inner Sonic fan again, letting me think of and analyze all these different dynamics that I love. Anyways, as of uploading this, I have already ordered the keychains and I'm excited to sell them at conventions and online. Not to mention all the conversation I hope to have with fellow fans. And speaking of, did I mention your favorite ship in the video? Let me know what your favorite Sonic couple is in the comments and why. This is an open space to share your passion for what fictional alien furry should kiss, okay? I'm still new to this YouTube thing, but if you want to see me get better and better with each video, I recommend that you subscribe and follow my journey. If you're just stopping by, that's perfectly fine too. Either way, thank you for watching.